Hi there, I'm designer Lily, a product designer in San Francisco who's currently working at Pinterest, and I've worked in a variety of different consumer tech companies in Silicon Valley over the years. Now, the market is quite different than when I first started in product design. I got my start in product design working at a startup, and I will say that even though AI was not a part of the picture back then, and it is today, there are still core skill sets that I don't think fundamentally have changed that much. And in this video, I'll share with you what those core skill sets are. First and foremost, now due to the economy and the amount of low tech openings compared to, let's say, before 2022, there is a higher bar for technical aptitude in almost any role in tech. And product design is not an exception. This means that in order to stand out in the candidate pool and break into product design today, technical skill is still highly prized. And what I mean by that is your actual design skills, such as visual design, interaction design, and prototyping. When you're new, you're often responsible for executing the designs, and the strategy part is often dictated by leadership or a more senior designer. What I would do if I didn't have any existing projects is I would look at real apps today, like Airbnb, Lyft, Uber, and then I would actually think about how would I redesign this platform to have a new feature. So for example, if I wanted to design something like Airbnb planning with your friends, what would that feature look like and how would that integrate into the existing experience? You can then take your designs and then user test it with your friends and family, and that user testing results will provide data points in which you can use to back up your case study or your project.
Hey there, Audio Lily here. I wanted to share a case study that I did in which I did exactly what I just mentioned in the video, where I took an app and I designed an experience and integrated it into the existing product and then made a case study slash project out of it. And the cool part about this is that I got to actually interview on site with Rabbit because of this case study. Now, I didn't end up working at Rabbit, but I was able to land another startup role with this case study. So, this is how I did it. I utilized task scenarios, which is basically going through the app itself and then writing up all these different scenarios of these different user flows that I wanted users to try. And then I wrote it out, wrote a script for it, grabbed a few of my buddies, and then did user testing in which I had them go through these 5 scenarios, and then they would tell me their user pain points or what worked, what didn't work. Then I synthesized the pain points and then did an infinity matrix in which I prioritized what pain points to solve for. Then I did a task flow because that was all the rage back then. Not sure how relevant it is to the actual experience, but it's basically a diagram showing you the user journey where the pain points are most frustrating. And then analyze the pain points with the previous experience, basically mapping them out on the previous screens. Now, sketches are completely optional. You can jump into hi-fi if you want, but me coming from an art background, I do enjoy drawing. And then I took those iterations and then turned them into high fidelity designs. And then I did the before and after with showing them how I was able to improve the designs and then specifically calling out how each of the main pain points that I prioritized, I was able to actually solve this with a new experience. And that is
When you're creating these new features for these apps, you have to also learn how to design in the language of these existing platforms, which will help you think more critically on visual design details and at the same time understand how to make your designs functional. This is a good exercise because most of the time when you're working as a product designer, you're designing a new feature or integrating some kind of new functionality into an existing product. You're not designing 0 to 1, which is what you often see with these AI generated tools. They're really great at generating 0 to 1 ideas, like these mini apps, these games, but it really struggles with taking an existing product that is mature and then introducing a new experience into that. And this is something I occasionally do myself just to practice my design skill and just kind of flex that a bit more because it really forces you to analyze the visual design of the entire product as you're redesigning it from scratch, and also the interaction design behind the different functionalities. And then lastly, it also forces you to practice prototyping. And speaking of prototyping, I would get really familiar with Figma prototyping because this is oftentimes 80% the main tool of choice. I've used Protopie and I've used After Effects, but I often revert back to Figma because it's just easy to share with the team when it's in the file itself. And you can get really creative with Figma prototyping to get the results that you want. And a fun fact I learned is that most of Google Gemini was designed first in Figma and then prototyped with Figma.
Hey, it's Audio Lily again. This is an example from Gemini's website. For this chat prototype, the gradient light at the top and all the animations, including the scrolling down, is all possible in Figma. The one exception is this video here. As you can see, that's probably done with After Effects. And then the text loading one by one probably takes too long in Figma, so probably in Protopie. But aside from that, everything else is possible in Figma.
The second thing I'll do is practice for design interview questions because interview questions are not the same as working in design. Though there's some crossover of skills, mainly communication, I'd say for the most part, behavior interviews and design exercises are nothing like what you do at work. For example, when you answer behavioral questions, you have to come up with interesting highlighted points that is going to hit all the marks in 2 minutes or less. And that's really hard to do without any prep work. And then speaking of the design exercises like whiteboard challenges and app critiques, even though I've done tutorials on those, I still practice at least a few of them before any interview that I find important because I want to make sure that I put my best foot forward and those skills become rusty over time. And then for the portfolio presentation, which I think is the ultimate closer for your offer because that accounts to at least 50% of the decision in which they decide if they want to give you an offer or not, and it sets the tone for the rest of your interviews. The portfolio presentation needs a lot of prep work because that's 45 minutes to an hour of you speaking, and oftentimes you'll get a lot of questions that might catch you off guard. So I usually run at least my portfolio presentation a few times before any important interview. Now, if you're not sure how to practice for design interviews, you can find some videos on my channel which I show you what I would do in an interview setting. And I've had many designers come to me and tell me they've passed their interviews thanks to watching my videos and practicing my methods. In fact, one of the product design apprentices, aka interns at Pinterest, have reached out to me and told me that they watched my tutorials and my methods, and that was a large part of the reason why they're able to pass interviews. And now they're at Pinterest and we're in the same company together. So don't worry if you've never done one before, all it takes is practice and preparation. If you're not sure how much to practice your interview skills, I recommend at least 2 months because the better you are at interviewing, the more likely you'll get offers and the better those offers are because interview performance is linked to how high your offer will be. And offers can widely range in tech. I mean, I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars here, if not hundred thousands sometimes. The next skill to practice is public speaking, and this is especially true if you want to work for a well-known tech company. I say this because I've noticed working at tech companies, including Pinterest, at least 30% of the time, I'm doing some form of communication, whether that is a stand-up, review, presentation, critique, etc., or I'm meeting people one-on-one in which you're trying to build a relationship and at the same time advocate for your ideas and your work. And I've noticed that the majority of people that get promoted are above average at least in terms of public speaking skill. This means that if they're called upon randomly to answer a question, to respond to a point, or even presenting something or giving updates to leadership, they're going to be able to speak clearly about their parts and articulate their thoughts. And this is not possible if you don't have some kind of practice in public speaking. Public speaking, I think, in corporate America is like the baseline skill in order to succeed. And even though I know a lot of you watching are probably not fans of public speaking because public speaking apparently is one of the greatest fears, at least in the US, even though that is the case, I will say that the more that you do it, the more that you enjoy it. Lastly, in this era, of course, you're going to get questions about AI. Learning AI tools is something that's going to be able to help you answer questions about AI because you'll definitely get those in interviews. And being able to help a team improve their process and efficiency is attractive from a hiring standpoint. However, I want to caution here is that learning AI tools should not be the primary focus, in my opinion. Your primary focus should be investing and developing your skills to a high level where you can stand out from the competition. What I found AI is really good at is doing 0 to 1 ideas, or taking an existing design and polishing that and refining that, or acting as a thought partner for personas or users that you might not be familiar with, as well as doing some very preliminary and basic user testing and helping out with even some content editing. So I find that AI can definitely help to refine a lot of processes and it's kind of like the icing on the cake. But in my opinion, it does not substitute for real learning. So real learning being the investment into your skills, developing them in a way that is going to allow you to stand out from the rest and be able to critically think because AI is really only as good as the questions that you ask it. If you don't have a certain level of awareness, the answers you get are not going to hit that level of awareness. It's kind of like when you're reading a book, you can ask it to give you a summary, but it's going to be a very broad and basic summary. But when you've read the book and you ask it deep and insightful and pointed questions, it's able to then help you link and articulate concepts together and improve your overall learning. And that's kind of how I use AI as a thought partner, but I still have to put in the work first in order to get the most out of it. All right, so that's what I would do if I was trying to break into UX or product design in this day and age with AI. I am aware that my content and advice might sound different from a lot of the advice out there, but keep in mind, I'm coming from the perspective of a tech employee in San Francisco. So this has been my experience so far interviewing in Silicon Valley. If you've enjoyed this, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content from me, Designer Lily, in terms of product design, living in San Francisco, tech companies, or just learning more about my journey, then hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Take care.